Atlas Fallen. Bro, what the f? I feel like it has become common practice in gaming nowadays where a game releases in a state where it's either unplayable due to performance issues or just overall jank in the game mechanics. Now what used to be a pick your chin up and go again type of scenario for game developers and studios has now turned into an attempt at redemption by going back instead of forward to fix the game and try to change it to make the game that, well, gamers want, of course. That is exactly what Atlas Fallen has aimed to do with its Reign of Sand kind of re-release, one could say, almost 1 year later. What you have here is not only fixes in some areas that the original had, but also changes almost everything else that there is in the game. I mean, from new quests in the game to new enemies to changes in the story progression, changes in the leveling progression, changes in the main freaking voice actor in the game. It's so many changes that makes you think, man, why didn't they just launch this game on day one instead of having to go back and release it in a new kind of revamped state with all of this kind of added content in it?
Why?
But that's not what we're here for, as we're here to know if the game is actually any fun to play and if you should be playing it once it's in its kind of definitive version. So subscribe if you're new and let's get on with the premise of the game. Now I'm gonna try my best not to butcher explaining the story. It starts you off as this Jake Sully looking ass dude and you're stuck in this weird dream world where everything seems to be falling apart. Other than setting you up for what the story is, this section of the game doubles as the tutorial, and once you finish that you are quickly transported to you. But this time it's the real you, kind of awakening in a camp as your custom character, who is this unnamed, literally a piece of garbage, a scum if you will.
Know your fucking place, trash.
A slave that you get to play as in this game. You are unnamed because the slaves in this game, they don't have names. You are of course destined to save the world, so it's not long before you meet up with the aforementioned Blue Man Group member who resides within a gauntlet of all things. And now, ignoring that weird fact that we got a lot of talking clothing and jewelry in 2023 games, broski, am I the only one who noticed this or what? But more importantly, for the sake of this game, the gauntlet is the source of all your powers that allow you to kind of swing, slash and swoosh in the air in an attempt to figure out who this person inside the gauntlet is, first of all. Also ask the question, why is James Cameron releasing so many freaking Avatar movies, man? I'm getting sidetracked. It's not long before you set your sights on taking down the tyrannical sun god Thelos, who, with the help of your new gauntlet friend, seems like a dude that you could pretty much just take on. Now in your way are the vast sands, of course, and this kind of segues us to the gameplay, of which I think most people are interested in more, or most, because if you've seen any videos on this game, then no doubt you've seen the over-the-top action that this game has in it. And thankfully, this is where the game absolutely shines, in my honest opinion, broski. Combat is split between the usual swing and dodge mechanics that you'd expect from a action-focused RPG, of course, but this game does it with a very interesting twist that I don't think I've seen in other games, at least to my knowledge. Like, if you know some games that do it in a similar way, and let me know, I want to play that shit, bro. Like, what the hell, it's awesome. Also, while you're at it, subscribe to the channel, my broski, man. Click it down below. In any case, combat functions by building up strengths of your attacks by, well, attacking, of course. Skills work on this momentum system of bronze, silver and gold, which of course means that you deal more damage the higher the tier skill is, if that makes any sense. So you attack to build the blue meter next to your health bar, which then can be expended on skills depending on the skill in question, of course. But if you think that's the extent of it, broski, then that's not even close. You are sorely mistaken, as the higher you reach in the tier system, the bigger your actual weapon gets, and it becomes this more heavy-hitting unit. But conversely, you also take more damage the higher the tier skill is, if that makes any sense again. These skills that you can slot into the tier list I mentioned earlier can be found, crafted and upgraded to essentially just hit harder or have some added effect to them. And I do have to say, there is a bunch of options on offer here, and it's all very cool because not only can you kind of find your own rotation of attacks in each tier, but also because some of these skills are passive buffs, it just further increases your ability to kind of build your own class, which I don't know about you, broski, but I find that to be absolutely awesome and really is a highlight in this game. And thankfully you'll be doing a lot of fighting as well, because this game, the fighting is front and center. There are also some light platforming and puzzles to, well, puzzleize in the vast sandlands, but for the most part you spend your time gliding on the sand or swooshing through the air to then talk talk to some random NPC, and then glide and swoosh to another place to either kill some cool looking beasts or lift some objects out of the ground with your telekinesis abilities. From my experience with the game so far, I found it really worthwhile to find new skills and actually explore the world, similarly to how it is in Dragon's Dogma 2, where the best stories are kind of told outside of the main plot and through kind of the random things that you find in the world that you explore, like the hidden nooks and crannies, random bosses, the kind of watchtower things that you clear. It's also nicely built, and it keeps from the game feeling very monotonous. There are moments in the game where you find what I can only describe as audio scrolls and sad memories, where you get to see some behind the scenes lore on the world and why it is the way that it is, which they're all cool. They end up being maybe a bit more boring, if I'm being very honest, to listen to, especially since the combat is so hectic and the traversal is based on speed most of all. So having to stop and sit down to listen to a story like some freaking 6-year-old kid kind of destroys the momentum sometimes, and I gotta be very honest with that. Now, so far the quote-unquote loot you find has been either skills or materials or artifacts from bosses or chests that you find dotted around, which you can all just use to just buy more components or craft some armor, of which there is an okay amount of. Now I say okay and not great because it's a kind of a limited variety in armor so far, and they don't really give you that big of a difference in terms of buffs and stats. They all kind of work as well once you upgrade them, but yeah, it's more just cosmetic. If you ask me, the armor system in this game is not very RPG, if I'm being very honest, man. I prefer having arms and legs as their own kind of things, pieces of armor you might say, as well as some actual use in changing equipment. Like I said, man, I wanted some meaningful stat changes. I mean, if you ask me, I do prefer changing even the type of laces that my character has, man. Give me the biggest amount of freaking customization that I can have in a game, man. Give it to me all. But in regards to the armor in Atlas Fallen Reign of Sand, I do have to say that name every time. At least the armor looks nice. But regarding the open world exploration that I was talking about earlier, and if it's any fun, I do have to say, man, I've been enjoying it so far, if that's not obvious enough already. There's also this added mechanic of the kind of Eye of Sauron in a tower, as you can constantly see the big Eye of Telos in the distance, which I thought was a very cool addition to the game. And if he manages to focus on you, which happens from time to time, you have to kind of fight your way through this horde mode of enemies, of course. On top of this, there are normal random scattered objectives to complete, of course, or elite enemies to take down, and this keeps the open world traversal from feeling way too monotonous, like I mentioned earlier. And this kind of segues to the performance of the game, because it's also hectic, but it's gotta work well, broski. And so far so good, I gotta be very honest, man. The frames haven't really dipped below 62 often, with a few exceptions of course, but that seems to be the normal these days. And the draw distance is just awesome, man. I really love it in this game. Like being able to just look in the far distance to then just glide, swoosh and slide your way to it is just top tier. When the going gets tough, then the controls were also responsive, even if that sometimes means that it can be a bit difficult to see what's going on because of the particle effects and everything happening on screen, and sometimes it's just you mashing buttons and hoping that you beat the enemy before he beats you. I gotta be very honest with that. But the game can run like room temperature butter and have all the loot that one could ever hope to loot in as, if that makes a game good at all, on paper at least. But the big question is, of course, is the game fun and worthwhile to play? I like to rate games on a 3-tier list system. If it's a day one buy, if it's a maybe wait for a deep sale or some kind of subscription system preferably, or if it's OnlyFans or only for fans, man. Yes, I said OnlyFans, and that's pun intended. And to that, I would like to rate this game a solid maybe wait. As it stands for me at this moment in time, it's not a full price buy game, and more of a wait for a deep sale kind of ordeal. I mean, the game is not one of those games that people would rank up there with the very best that RPGs have to offer, but for the package that is here, it's an enjoyable package, man. Surprisingly, I said package too many times, man. No diddy. There are moments in the game where you just look at all of the grandeur that you have around you, and yes, I can use fancy words as well, but that's not my point. My point is, I can't shake the feeling of just having mindless fun when playing this game. The combat is fun, albeit a bit frustrating at times due to just a lot of things happening on screen at the same time. The traversal as well, it's fun, albeit a bit slowed down at times when you hit some kind of patches of grass or stone. The overall experience is fun, again, to progress, albeit a bit over-reliant on lore things at times. I hope you catch what I'm saying with these points, broski. The game is good, it's not great. It's a fun, but it's not a laugh, if that makes any sense. It's an okay game, but it's not awesome, if they are, you know? I will for sure be playing this game further further and finishing it for eventually making my retrospective review on the game. So if you haven't yet, then man, subscribe to the channel to find out if my opinions change at all when playing this game, comparing it to now, of course. Also, if you want to see my thoughts on Dragon's Dogma 2, another game which is very controversial and very exploration oriented, man, click this link right here to see if that game is any good and if you should be playing it as well. But man, these have been my thoughts, man. Should you play this game? I don't know, man. I was only here to tell you about my experience, and if I liked it, man, you can do whatever the you want. I've been your broski. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, click the like button, man. Subscribe to the channel. It would help me out the absolute bunch, in all honesty. But in any case, I hope you guys enjoy your day wherever you're from. I don't know how to end this video, so here's a meme that I think of while editing this video, man. Hasta prontissimo.